Welcome to the movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take good care. Racing Fire is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get every update. Chung Sungbong, a police inspector from the Regional Anti-Crime Unit, in bed with his wife Anna Lam, pregnant with their first child, recalls the brutal death of his best friend later that day. Meanwhile, Bong went to the police station and met with other police officers to discuss the operation to arrest Wong Kuan, a drug trafficker who was about to make drug deals with the Vietnamese mafia. During the meeting, they learned, although Wong had been a police target for several years, shortly after the discussion ended, Bong received a call from one of his team members. Bo Yuan asked Bong to meet him because he had an urgent matter to discuss. Bong is introduced to the police, a wealthy businessman, and his son. When he arrives at Bo's house, the billionaire is asked to close the case of his son attacking a police officer. Bong, on the other hand, denies that because according to him, they must respect the law. Gangsters Yao Kong Chu Chi Kung La Kim with Chao Chi Chun and Makik Jumo planned to deliver drugs to rob Wong the next day. Bong returns to the police station and learns that his superiors ordered him to arrest Wong after he refused to close the case. On the businessman's suit meanwhile, Yuk's friend Sing Bong and the Regional Crime Unit director and his entire army go to Wong's camp. Bong called to ask about the base's location, but he refused to tell because it was an order from his superiors. However, Bong did not give up and ordered a member of his team to determine the location of his friends and forces. Todd arrived at the base and was ready to check when the Vietnamese mafia simultaneously arrived and were attacked by Kong's squad. Then Khan's squad members neutralized all police surveillance while Kong and others were looking for Wong. Kong steals his drugs and kills him and his soldiers when the police start attacking Kong and his group attacks them all at once. Bong and his team locate Wong's base. Bong is on his way when he notices an explosion in the building where the police are ready to ambush Wong while you seem to be able to stand after the explosion. Tragically, he was murdered by Khan's accomplices. Bong and his team arrived at the scene shortly after, but they were late. He found out that you died in a terrible condition while many others were seriously injured. On the other hand, Khan gives the drugs he took to a gangster named Guai, who was angry with him. Kong left after being paid despite wisecracks about what he had done, and Bong and other police officers attended the funeral the next day. He seems confused by the murder of his best friend and plans to expose the mastermind behind the attack that killed him. On the other hand, Kong is exercising physically and he suddenly remembers his past when he was a police officer with his team. Kong and Bong used to be close friends. Their master commissioner, Shadow, assigns them to rescue a wealthy businessman named Mr. Bong and Kong parted ways after receiving the mission. Kong therefore acted first to arrest Wong's colleague while Bong was responsible for capturing Wong. Kong captured Wong's teammates shortly after receiving a call from Shadow asking him to use all necessary measures to protect himself, after which Kong and his teammates beat Wong's team senselessly. Mourned while interrogating them some time later, Kong discovers Mr. Folk. On the other hand, Bong may not have caught Wong and sought Kong's help while Kong and his friends were caught off guard. Wong's men bit a member of his team and attempted to run away, but this action caused Kong and a team to simultaneously beat Wong's team to death. Walked in and saw it all happen. Wong and his team were eventually charged with violating the police code of ethics surrounding the arrest of criminals. However, in this trial, Shadow testified against them, as did Mr. Folk, who instead blamed their behavior immediately after Bong was named as the offender. Witness, and he was forced to testify that he saw Kong and his group beat Wong's team to death after Kong and his group were officially convicted and sentenced to prison and discharged from the police force Wong's murder in a humiliating manner. Even when one of Kong's group demanded justice until he tried to commit, no one wanted to protect them. So Kong took revenge on Wong's police who were paid people to torture them in prison for the subsequent murder of his partner. Bong and his team began drug raids on several nightclubs while searching for information about who sold drugs to Wong. Fortunately, they didn't have to wait long to get information from a drug dealer who admitted to buying drugs in Gwei after Bong and his team met to look into Gay, who they say is an ex-con who lives in a violent neighborhood where residents are willing to die to protect him. Bong asks the crew to return to their quarters late at night because they cannot capture Guy then, but Bong resolves to go alone to Gwei's headquarters to capture him soon after. A fight breaks out when Bong pushes one of the locals to reveal Gwei's location and he ends up meeting Squire. He asked why he took the drugs without more ado, but Gay seemed relaxed and instead gave him the money by selling the drugs, thinking he could bribe. He However, Bong throws the money aside in rage. Then another fight breaks out as Bong tries to take over Gui. At the police station, he still naturally refused, and his people and soldiers boldly broke into his house when the situation began to turn in their favor. Gay Bong's team came to help him despite knowing that Bong would do it because he didn't want to endanger his team. Why? The other hand tries to escape, so Bong runs after him while his group fights the sages, which they fight right after, but Gay is still able to escape and run away as Gui runs off into the street. He was attacked by one of Kong's group members and died shortly after the incident. Senior police officers took advantage of Bong and his team's success by claiming that they had ordered his men to report to Ragged headquarters the next day. Kong and his team go to cremate a deceased team to get justice at the same time. Bong arrives but is treated poorly because it is their first meeting since the trial of the murder they committed while in prison. Bong tried to meet Kong and his colleagues, but they refused. Kong finally agrees to talk alone with Bong. Wong died a week ago in a police bomb raid, murdered by a group of people who killed many policemen, including you. Kong smiled and encouraged Bong after hearing that he later claimed to have captured the group. Chu had a good time with his girlfriend and invited all his friends to the bar. Went to the hotel room with his girlfriend and gave her Wong's watch that he had stolen during the robbery. When his girlfriend went to the bathroom, he accidentally discovered a message from someone he met on a photo of them in bed, chewed up his body, and threw it into the ocean. After witnessing this in this case, police discovered Chu's girlfriend's body and Wong's watch the next day thanks to surveillance cameras and CCTV footage of the murder. Bong realizes that the murderers are Kong and his accomplices, which further confirms his suspicions. Meanwhile, Kong and his group meet a mafia guy to talk. How can they work together to steal Mr. Folkbank Bong from his group, on the other hand, followed, picked up the SIM card and figured out where he was so they could chase him later. Chu and Hua realized they were being chased by the police, so they ran away and reported the incident. Situation in Kong, but Chu did not know that Bong and his colleagues had tapped his phone, so Bong knew where Kong was and ran to find him. Meanwhile, Kong and two members of his group learned from Chu that the police were searching for them and they left the meeting room in two groups. Chu and Hua went to see the police, but Hua chose the wrong route and was arrested instead. Meanwhile, Bong arrived at where Kong was staying, but Kong, who wanted to escape, noticed his presence and chose another route, specifically the building's parking lot, then took a motorbike to Bong, jumped down from the second floor of the parking lot, rushed into a car, forced the car owner to stop, then presented the police license, asked the car owner for permission to borrow the car, and departed after calming down. On the other hand, Chu looked desperate as he drove his car. During a traffic jam, he was almost surrounded and arrested by the police. Chad and Chuan came to save him and got into a gunfight on the street. Kong escapes after a long chase when Bong turns the car around and saves a young boy. Police then questioned Hua about his involvement in Wong's drug theft and the police bloodbath. On the other hand, Hua remained loyal to his team and refused to confess that he was beaten until he died by Kong and others because Chu was no longer alive. Authorities have no evidence to arrest Kong in a team. He orders Chan and Chen to kidnap Shadow from his house after killing Chu into Sito's residence and kidnapped him the next day. Bong and his group planned to capture Kong and his group when they suddenly showed up at the police station to report their absence but were detained by the police for questioning. They tried to avoid all questions from investigators, and Kong maintained that the target his report at the police station was to report Joe missing. If the police are involved in the case, Kong challenges them to find evidence. He even boasted that he was willing to spend 48 hours in jail at the police station for questioning as they looked for evidence of his and his group's involvement. The police found Chu after 48 hours, but he was dead, so the police lost all clues and could not charge Kong and his accomplices after receiving the report. Bong goes to Kong's room and destroys all the cameras. Kong replied that he did all this for revenge. The people who imprisoned him and his comrades in retaliation for the treatment of Wong, who paid their torturer in prison. Bong became angry after hearing Kong's explanation for his actions. Went too far in sacrificing innocent police officers, including yourself. Kong explains that their first target was only for him, but because he did not act, Kong simultaneously killed the police. Bong's team burst into the interrogation room to announce that his wife was being held by the police. Shadow, who wears a bomb around his neck, hearing this bubble sound, he believes that Kong is playing with him and intends to get back at him and at the same time settle things. Bubble Punch Kong storms out of the interrogation room and goes to save his wife, the police forced to relax immediately afterwards. Bong then arrived at his wife's house. He realized that the bomb wrapped around Z's neck was directly related to his pulse, so the only option for Bong to save his wife was to kill Sito without catching him off guard. But the situation Bong's condition becomes complicated when Shadow chains him up. His wife's hand after Kong forced Shadow to admit to Bong that he was, who convinced him to do everything possible to find Mr. Folk and swore to protect him, but he betrayed his commitment after Kong began counting the seconds until the bomb exploded, which caused Bong to panic and open fire on the departing policeman. Go. Evaluate him and leave his wife a police sniper on the other side, killing Shadow, causing the Kong explosive on his side to deactivate, reactivate it, and order Chun to press the detonation button accordingly. Bong shot the guy and ran away with the bomb and his wife and left. Hospital doctors later announced that Bong's unborn child had been saved at the same time that the Central Police arrived and arrested Bond for shooting the police. In other news, Kong and his team take on the Mafia again. On the other hand, Mafia declared that he was no longer interested in dealing with Kong upon hearing this. Kong was frustrated, so he killed the gangster and his men, but before killing the Mafia, Kong exchanged the USB drive containing BPA bank security data with Mr. Folk's bank to trick the police into transferring it to the bank BPA products, allowing him to freely plunder Mr. People. On the other hand, Bong faces trial by the police due to his behavior, but his entire team suddenly defends him, but he asks his team to wait outside and starts justifying himself by telling all his sacrifices to the police. He claimed that the difficulties were a result of Khan's revenge, and that if he were imprisoned, he would never be able to capture Kong. So he begged the court to release him so he could catch him, which was lucky. Court officials allowed him 24 hours to arrest Kong, and asked him to return to the police court after this time. Shortly after Bong and his group arrived at the dead Mafia headquarters, a member of his group came to inform that his body was discovered in the body of a bank security guard. He say that Mr. Folk had returned from America and that his bank was holding a shareholders meeting. Bong realizes that Kong wants revenge on Mr. Folk after hearing this bubble sound, then goes to Ma, the lead police officer in BPA Bank's arrest operation, to inform him of his tricks. Kong, but Ma says he believes his team's evidence spoke louder than his words, so he fired him and ordered him and his staff to Mr. Folk's bank alone. On the other hand, Kong started impersonating a bank employee and entered Mr. Folk's bank. When Mr. Folk approached a room in the bank, Kong and his team attacked him and forced him to open the safe containing the money right after Mr. Folk's gang put all the money in the safe in their pockets while Kong killed Mr. Folk in revenge after Kong and his gang fled the bank. Chase. Right after that, they have a bubble gun battle while shooting bubbles in a team. Kong and his men sat down and prepared to flee shortly after the BPA bank police came to help after discovering Kong had dumped them when Kong noticed him throwing a bomb that caused many cars to explode while the police surrounded Kong. He started to run away, but Bong followed and shot him until he caught him in a church. Bong paralyzed Kong by breaking his arm after a fight intense. At the same time, police surrounded the area and targeted Kong. Bong began to leave, abandoning Kong because he was unhappy with what Kong had done. The film ends with the police pointing their guns at Kong and him realizing he has lost, so he laughs before accepting his death. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.